You're listening to Dairy Voice by Dairy Business News, a podcast exclusively for the dairy industry.
One of our sponsors of the Dairy Voice podcast is National DHIA. NDHIA ensures information accuracy and represents their members' interests. They are the direct voice for the dairy information industry. To find out more, go to dhia.org.
This episode is brought to you by DRMS, a trusted provider of dairy information and decision tools. As a nonprofit with deep ties to NC State and Iowa State universities, we've spent over 65 years serving the dairy industry, delivering research-backed software, standardized data, and exceptional customer support. Our dedicated team works alongside producers and consultants to ensure they get the training, tools, and insights they need. We turn complex herd data into clear, actionable insights that help producers and consultants make informed decisions every day through solutions built in collaboration with the dairy industry. Learn more at drms.org.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Dairy Voice podcast by Dairy Business News. I'm your host, Connie Kuber, with Sealpro Silage Barrier Films by Connor Agriscience. Thanks for joining us today, and please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends. And before we get started, I always keep in mind that we have listeners who are not part of the dairy industry, and we appreciate you learning about the great lengths that the dairy industry goes to educate and share information that benefits not only the cattle that we manage, but the people who consume our products. And today we're going to be talking about those people in our industry who actually make the products out of those great dairy cattle that we have. So thank you for listening, everybody. After a very rich silage harvest that's nearing its end, we've heard about record crops and abundance all over the country. And we're very thankful for that. And looking ahead as we move into that new year and all those resolutions that will be made to take better care of ourselves and lose the pounds that we gained over celebrations and having more of a positive outlook on life. The podcast is going to talk about those kinds of things. So it's a little different than regular dairy management or breeding programs, genetics, that kind of thing. You're going to love this one. Today, my guest is Wendy Hushon with Uplevel Wellness. And Wendy has developed a consortium of people that deal with wellness with human beings, not just cows. Welcome, Wendy, to the Dairy Voice podcast. Can you give us your background and tell us how you came to this point in your career?
Thank you, Connie. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to talk a little bit with your listeners today. So my name is Wendy Hushon. I grew up in Western Kansas, primarily in the beef industry, but started out my career in agriculture, communications, and marketing, and spent almost 20 years there. So I was on the path of the job, the life, the kids, all the things, when I realized that, oh, hey, I wasn't taking very good care of myself. And so that led me down a journey of just starting to want to lose some weight, and figured out I needed to eat a little bit better myself. But thankfully, once I got a little bit further into that journey, I realized that, there was a lot more that was happening besides just what I was eating and what I weighed on the scale every day. So I realized that there was a lot of things going on in my life that I really wasn't taking care of myself, and I was not showing up as my best self for my family, my kids, my coworkers, or anybody. And that really became a major turning point in my life when I realized, okay, there's some things I need to pay a little bit more attention to. I need to have a little more intention in my life. I also realized that I was kind of lacking some purpose in my career. And at the time, my kids were young and one was finishing kindergarten. And so in an effort to keep him out of daycare, I decided to take a left turn with my career. So I went from ag marketing to health coaching and helping other people on their own journeys, which has led me to, as you said, building this group of people in a business where I have a team of coaches who are all dedicated to helping people, especially those of us who are really career-driven, motivated people, to take better care of themselves mentally and physically so that they can show up for everybody else in their life in the best way possible.
With over 85 projects, California Bioenergy is without a doubt one of the leading developers of anaerobic digesters for dairy farms in the United States. Since 2006, CalBio has been forming successful partnerships with dairy farmers to create digesters that are built to last. Our CalBio team has the expertise to help lead you through the entire development process. From project design and engineering to credit generation and the day-to-day operations. With subsidiaries in the Northwest, Midwest, and Southwest, CalBio is ready to partner with dairy farmers across the country. Learn more at calbioenergy.com.
What an interesting path.
It was not expected at all. If you would have told me this is what I would be doing, I would have told you were crazy, but I really love it. And I really love, because there are a lot of us that are really just going through life, kind of going through the motions, and doing things the way that we've always done them, and not realizing that, hey, it is possible to change, and we do need to take a little better care of ourselves to be able to do that.
That was going to be my next question, is what is your why? And I know you've developed this consortium of people. Maybe tell us a little bit about who is that in your consortium? Who do you work with?
Sure. My why, and what I mentioned was, I just really realized that there was a lot of other people like me who weren't really paying attention to some of these things that are pretty crucial to living a healthy, successful life. And I was just kind of going through the motions, and I see a lot of other people out there. So now I really have a passion for helping people realize that just because something is the way that it's always been doesn't mean that it's the way that it has to be. And that it's really never too late when it comes to our health to make changes for the better. There's a lot of research and a lot of stories out there from people who make changes even in their 60s and 70s and are really able to turn their health around because they've decided, okay, this is important and it's something I want to work on. So as far as my team, I have a group of coaches. And the really neat thing is everybody has a little different specialty. So whether it's you want some help to lose some weight and you would like a nutrition program or somebody to help you with that, we have that. Maybe it's more on the strength side. So we need somebody to help you from, the physical training, strength training kind of perspective. But then we also have teams and resources of people who can help with just one-on-one coaching. Talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness, which basically covers about everything in our life, all kind of adds up to our overall wellness and well-being. And so we can help people, whether it's emotional stress or relational stress or sleep, hydration, all of those different types of things. We have resources where we can really meet somebody where they are and help them understand what changes they want to make in their life, and then walk alongside them to build a plan that's realistic based on their life to get from point A to point B.
Get your Sealpro silage barrier film today. Protect the seed, fertilizer, labor, and expensive inputs that you've invested in. Choose best-in-class Sealpro now in 3 different versions: traditional 2-roll application, our new co-rolled application, and super simple and wildly successful 1-layer film, Sealpro 1. It's easy to buy, easy to use. Contractor covering? We'll work with them. Learn more at sealprosilage.com. That's SEALPRO silage.com. Family owned and operated for over 25 years. 559-779-5961. That's 559-779-5961. What do you see in your clients and their families, and what is the big picture goal of helping people live that healthier life?
I know that you have listeners of all different groups. The one thing I definitely see from people, dairy farmers, and even those of us in agriculture business, is sometimes we take better cows of our animals than we do of ourselves.
Right.
And we are a lot more concerned about, those cows' nutrition and everybody else's nutrition than we are about ourselves. And we just keep pushing ahead, and we just keep saying, well, it's okay, and I'm just going to keep going, and I'll worry about that another day. And if you stack enough of those days up, then that really becomes problematic for us, in terms of our nutrition or movement or whatever it is. I'd say that the commonality of a lot of people is they know the right things to do, but it's just a matter of being able to either have a plan so they know where to start, or being able to have the accountability to say, okay, willpower can be depleted really quickly. And so if you have somebody else that's walking along with you, it just makes it that much easier to say, okay, yep, I've stated that this is what I want to do, and there's somebody else that's going to help keep me accountable. And then it really helps them get off the starting blocks, because we all know what we need to do, eat right, exercise, drink a lot of water, sleep a lot. Okay. but incorporating all of those things into our daily lives is sometimes hard. So it helps to have somebody else to help you take through one step at a time to get to where you want to go.
I've heard it said before, if we fed our cows the way we feed ourselves, the production in both milk and meat would be way different than what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You touched on this, but why is taking care of ourselves so essential? And how do we get over that hurdle of not taking the time to do that?
I'm not a doctor, and I'm not, a dietitian, but I think we all know the common sense of food is fuel. And just like you said, I mean, we know how important it is for especially, our animals to have a really dialed in ration, and make sure that they're not stressed and all of those things. But we don't think about that in terms of our own health, because I think a lot of times we're just so used to pushing through and just making it work and getting to the next thing that we don't stop to say, no, this really isn't how life is supposed to be. And I also think that it's partly because, unfortunately, so many people are being unhealthy is more of the norm than being healthy. And so when we're surrounded by people who are all kind of in survival mode like we are, it's sometimes hard to recognize that, oh, hey, that's not really how we're supposed to live. And that's not really how our bodies are supposed to work. One of the programs that we coach with is really focusing on metabolic health. What they're telling us is 90% of Americans have some sort of metabolic dysfunction.
Oh, wow.
And I believe it. And unfortunately, that metabolic dysfunction can lead to all of the really serious leading causes of death that come down to, if we're not taking care of ourselves, then our bodies will eventually break down and end up with all of these things that, we don't want.
Like you said, most people know what to do, but I think too that I myself see a lot of different people on social media plugging this supplement and that supplement, and you end up getting all these things that maybe aren't right for you. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And especially now with like the GLP-1s, and their promises and things that people are seeing in terms of the weight loss with those, it is difficult to know, okay, what's right and where exactly do I start? I will not claim to be an expert in all of those different things. And I'm sure that there are tools out there that, are definitely useful for people. What my experience has been and what I've learned, and I think especially as people in agriculture, we can appreciate that at the end of the day, it's about fueling our bodies with good, wholesome, whole food. And that if we can find a way to do that as much as possible and keep our bodies moving, find routines that fit within our life, those are going to really be the building blocks and foundations for our health. And I know that there are other things and supplements and things that are definitely important tools and things that we need. And I would say try and talk with people that you trust, talk to your doctor, figure out what's right for your specific situation. But we talk about the macro habits of health. And if those are really healthy weight management, sleep, hydration, stress management, moving your body, if you're taking care of those types of things, then I think most of the things are going to be put in place. And unfortunately, there's no magic pill that's going to really solve all of those things for us. It's just come down to how we're taking care of ourselves and our daily habits.
How do you recommend that people start?
What I would say is talk with somebody that you trust. We talk with people all the time, and we just say, okay, share where you are and what's happening. And then we like to help them understand what are their goals, what are they wanting to accomplish. And I think the most important thing is to start with one or two things at a time. Because if you are thinking that you're going to overhaul everything and you're going to coming up on New Year's resolution season, and if you say on January 1st, I'm going to go to the gym 6 days a week and I'm going to change everything about my diet and I'm going to go to bed at this time every night and I'm going to get all this sleep, it's not realistic because you're trying to change too many things at one time. Mm-hmm. So we really encourage people to start with one or two things, get really good at those couple of things, and then once that get easier, build on it. Because if you're trying to do too much at once, it's not going to happen. I mean, what do they say? The National Quitters Day is like January 9th or something, which says that people make it like 8 or 9 days with all these resolutions that they say they're going to do before they quit. because
And
they
that's
try to
probably a lot of days.
it probably is, yeah. So one thing at a time, one or two things at a time, and find an accountability buddy to help you stay on track with your goals.
Right, which is where Uplevel Wellness comes in.
Absolutely. Our goal is to really help people by connecting with them and understanding what is important to them, and then figuring out how can we help support them and what resources do we have to meet their goals, because everybody's are a little different and it's not all one size fits all.
You and I have talked about in a separate conversation about how self-care is an investment in yourself.
What I think we all realize is when we get to that point where we're taking better care of ourselves, we can show up better for everybody else. And so while at first it may feel like you have to say no to something else in order to saying yes to taking care of yourself, I think what everybody who gets to that point realizes is eventually it does pour over into everybody else, because what's the saying? You can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
And so if you're able to take a time out long enough to say, no, wait, this is really important, then eventually you'll be able to be better for everybody else too.
Well, let's dig in a little deeper into nutrition and exercise. How do those two things play a role in a healthy lifestyle that you see people need to adopt?
Well, like I said, I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist, but I think we can all agree that nutrition and movement are really two powerful levers that can help us support our energy levels, our metabolic health, our longevity. Coming back to the analogy of, we know that our animals need a consistent diet at a consistent time with consistent energy levels in order to be able to perform at their best. And we really do too. What we eat and hydration fuels every cell in our body. And we need to think of that food as, the nourishment for ourselves and the fuel for our own bodies, just like we do for our animals every day. I think the important thing, and coming back to your point of where do people start, is it doesn't have to be perfect. And if there are some ups and downs in your day or your routine, just keep coming back to some of those same habits. So prioritizing protein, getting in your fruits and vegetables, hydration, eating regularly. And that's something, especially when I talk to my dairy farmer clients, they might grab something as they're heading out in the morning. They may or may not eat something during, for lunch quickly, but most likely they're just kind of going throughout the day, and then they eat a big meal before bed, and then they crash because they're exhausted and they really didn't fuel their body consistently at all. So we really teach all of our clients to try and eat every 3 to 4 hours. So you're eating 4 or 5 times throughout the day. Get some protein at each of those points to keep you full, keep your fuel, keep you fueled for the day, and to make sure you're drinking your water, because it really is fuel for our bodies, and our bodies cannot function at their prime if we're not consistently fueling them.
And we don't need to be perfect about it, but we need to be as close as we possibly can.
Prioritizing the protein and eating regularly, that can make a huge difference for people if that's all they do.
Funny enough, yesterday I was at we had the California edition of ARPAS, the Registered Professional Animal Scientist meeting. And we had a meeting yesterday, and one of the people who presented was talking about protein and the popularity of protein right now. It's not only good for us, but it's also good for our dairy industry as we make milk and meat, because dealing with a lot of beef on dairy right now, it's good for us, but it's also good for our industry that protein is getting more and more of a spotlight.
The top things that I tell people all the time when they ask me for, what are good protein on the go, especially easy things that I can have: cottage cheese, string cheese, Greek yogurt, hard-boiled eggs, obviously any form of meat. And so, yes, absolutely good for the industry and good for our bodies.
Right. And it's easy to have those kinds of things on hand. So like you said, if you're grabbing breakfast on the way, get a scoop of cottage cheese and put a few berries on it and you're good to go. Let's talk about exercise. What's your belief about that? Do we need to go buy a gym membership and go there, like you said, 6 days a week, which I can't imagine doing, but we try.
Yeah. I think there's 2 really great things about exercise. And one is that just the regular movement that we get on a daily basis is actually as important as the dedicated time that we have for strength training. If we're talking about a dairy farmer or something, chances are they're on the go a lot. And so they're getting a lot of that regular movement. You get moving all the way throughout the day. If we're talking about those of us who are maybe more stuck in an office job or in a vehicle and driving around a lot, we're not getting as much of that. We call it neat movement. Depending on kind of what your lifestyle is, you may have to prioritize that a little bit more or less, because you can be somebody, and I fall into this trap myself. I'm actually pretty good at going to the gym and getting in the routine with the strength training, 3 to 4 times a week. But then if I'm not careful, I can get 3,000 steps in my day because I'm sitting at a desk behind a computer all day. I think a couple of things about motion is, one, that just regular movement throughout the day is just as, if not more important than the specific time that we're spending on getting our heart rate up, doing the strength training and that sort of thing. So if you're somebody that's not really doing anything, just starting by moving more often, taking more breaks, standing at your desk, trying to get more steps in. And that doesn't mean going from 3,000 steps a day to 10,000 steps a day overnight and thinking that you're going to change that, because that may not be realistic. Work up to it. Maybe the goal is add 500 a week or something like that. But that is just as important. I think the flip side of that is the strength training is really important, and it is a lot. There is a connection between, are we stressing our muscle and our bones, and are we doing that strength training, because that's really going to help us with the longevity piece of it. And as we get older and as we age, help to combat those effects of aging. So it is important that we get that strength training in, but it's also important that we're just moving on a regular basis. And I always tell anybody that's starting with exercise, and I was this person, because exercise is not my most favorite thing to do. I know that it's a means to an end, but just start small and just add a little bit at a time. If you're in that camp of desk job, or, you're on the road and you're only getting 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day, start by just saying, okay, I'm going to walk for 15 minutes on the treadmill, whether that's in the hotel gym before you head out for the day or at home or whatever. Start doing that 3 times a week. And then when that gets a little bit easier, add a 4th one or add another 5 minutes. Don't think you're going to go to the gym and then all of a sudden you're just going to be this huge gym rat overnight. Just start with one habit at a time and do a little bit at a time, and eventually it'll get a lot easier.
And I know that a lot of our listeners, as dairy farmers, they think, oh, I don't need to do that. I'm up walking around all the time. I think from what I've heard is that it's important to get that heart rate up too. And just walking on your dairy may not be enough. And strength training, lifting a 50-pound bag, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, is not really the strength training that we're looking for. We're looking for a more consistent heart rate up and more reps of strength. Is that something you'd agree with?
Absolutely. And continuing to push your limits so that you continue to progress, because if you kind of keep doing the same thing over time, your body gets used to that level of activity. So There definitely is value in whether that's something that you're doing at home or you're doing at the gym. Stressing your body, stressing your muscles, it does make a difference in strengthening them as a whole, and they need to be able to progressively increase that over time.
Okay, so we've talked about making eating changes and exercise changes, and to not try to go do everything all at one time. Start out with just one thing. What about mental health? This is so important to dairy farmers. We have an industry that goes up and down with our milk prices that we get. We worry about exports and imports and what the consumers are thinking and why am I doing this in the first place and all that kind of thing. How can we evaluate and feel better about ourselves, our relationship, our occupation?
When I started all of this, the thing that really helped me the most was to take a step back and say, okay, I've got to find a way to have a little bit of time for myself in my day. And for me, that started with getting up 15 minutes earlier than what I was. And at the time, I had a 3-month-old baby and a 3-year-old. And so the idea of getting less sleep seemed crazy, but
yeah, really, especially when you've been up in the middle of the night with that 3-month-old, right?
Right. But the ability to wake up even 15 minutes earlier to start my day on my terms, have a few minutes to myself, have some time to practice a little gratitude, do my devotions, have a little bit of time to journal, even just have a little bit of time to sit and drink a hot cup of coffee on my own.
Right.
made a huge difference in my outlook for the day. And so I know, especially dairy farmers, you're getting up early and the idea of getting up earlier or whatever. But I think for me, the point was being able to find a little bit of time, carve out a few minutes to be able to stop and slow down and take a breath and have some of that intention to check in with myself and say, how am I really doing? And what do I need more of that day? I reference the book Atomic Habits a lot. That was a really influential book for me. And one of the things that he talks about is how if you don't live with intention, the general inertia of life will push you towards the negative. So that was, I think, my experience, that I had no real intention with what was happening. I was just going with wherever my day took me, whatever was happening, which then just ended up being a whole bunch of time that kind of felt like on a hamster wheel of just reacting to things all of the time, instead of being the more proactive one to say, how do I want to live my life? Okay, I know this is coming, so how do I want to react? How do I want to respond? Because not only are dairy farmers in a volatile industry, they also work with their families.
Right.
And so, there's lots of added stress and pressure from relational health. And so for me, I would say the thing that was most helpful was being able to take a moment to say, time out. This is really not how I want to live. I don't want to be reacting every day. I want to be more proactive. And for me, that was helpful to just take a little bit of time to start my day with attention. Say if there's somebody that feels like every day is a little bit of a whirlwind, and things are coming at you all the time, if there's a way that you can just have a little bit of a moment to ground yourself and say, okay, this is what I really want my life to look like, it starts to feel a little more empowering versus just kind of coming with every blow as it happens every day.
And what about relationship building with other people? How does that fall into this?
Interestingly, the program that I coach has a book. It's called the Life Book. And it's meant to take you about a year to go through. But chapter 4 is all about emotional and relational health, because that's like one of the most important things that really affects all of this, right? Because if we're constantly triggered by other people or stresses in our life, it's going to have such an effect on us physically and mentally and emotionally. And so I think it really is important. And one of the most important things that we can start by addressing is, what are some of those things in my life that maybe we need to take a look at as far as the relationships around me, and where do maybe we need some help to be able to deal with some of those things, because it's not easy, especially if we're talking about family and business and family business.
Right. I'm on Instagram and I probably am on it more than I should, but there was a quote that I saw yesterday that I put on my story that relates to this. It says, so my philosophy is simple. If you've never risked your own money, reputation, or time to create something that can fail, which is a dairy or a feedlot or a industry business, your critique is just noise. So it was, I thought that was interesting. And then 2, it's interesting. You're the second person that's mentioned Atomic Habits last 3 days to me. So maybe I need to go to find that book in the library or get it on Amazon or something. So
it's a great book. And even if you don't read the book, which it is a great book, and I do highly recommend it, follow James Clear on Instagram, and he has a newsletter that he sends out. He just sends really, really great quotes and tidbits of information that he shares that are really good.
We touched on this a little bit, but talk to me about how paying attention to who we are and deciding who we are works into our mental health.
This is an interesting concept that I really did not at all set out with the intention of becoming somebody different. I literally started all of this almost 6 years ago, just thinking I needed to lose some weight. And then I realized, oh boy, there's a whole different thing here that's happening. A coach of mine recently said, and this stuck with me so much. So she's a mindset coach, but she says the example she gives is somebody can lose weight, but they're never going to keep it off as long as they remain the same person who gained the weight. And I thought that's absolutely right. And that's why so many people go up and down and they yo-yo diet and they lose it and they gain it and they lose it and they gain it, because they actually feel more comfortable as the person that they were before, because they know that person. They know how it feels. Now, maybe they don't like it, but they know what it feels like to be in that skin because that's what they're used to. Then maybe they lose the weight and then they say, oh, but I don't really know how to exist as this person. I don't know how to take care of myself as this person. I've never been this person before. This is a big shift for me. And if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would now be building a health and wellness coaching practice and helping other people learn how to identify as a healthy person, I would have said you're crazy, because that wasn't part of who I was. But now I've realized that it's never too late to reinvent ourselves. And it's never too late to say, no, I want to shift and I want to become a different person. When we do decide, here's the type of person that I want to be, we're probably not going to make that shift overnight to be from one person to the next. But again, James Clear in Atomic Habits says, in order to build a habit and for that habit to stick, you have to become the type of person who just does that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gives the example of going to the gym. And he says, it's the bad workouts that really make the difference, because it's the time that you go to the gym, even if you don't feel like it, because that's the vote for the person that you want to become. You want to become the person who does that and prioritizes that no matter what. And so even just by going there, you're putting a vote in the side of, here's the type of person that I want to be. I would just encourage people to say it's never too late. You can reinvent yourself as someone who prioritizes their health, prioritizes healthy relationships. It's not going to be easy, and there might be people that don't come along with you on the ride.
Right.
But if it's something that you really want and something that you know is really the best for you, it is possible, and you just have to keep making votes for the person that you want to become in order to eventually become that person.
And I think we need to note too that, I mean, the dairy industry is a hard business depending on where you're at with it, and that seeking professional help is a good thing to do.
Absolutely, 100%. And, we do have a collection of different coaches, but we are not therapists. And there's a lot of people out there now who are coaches of some sort, but that does not replace professional help. And there are some things that people just absolutely need. And those people are wonderful and they can help you with a lot of things. And there is absolutely no shame in doing that, because
Right.
It is really important. And sometimes we need help to be able to see what the next step is.
Let's talk about Uplevel Wellness. What solutions do you have, you and your colleagues have, as a place to start?
We have a few different options just as ways to kind of get to know us and engage with us a little bit. You can find us on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Wendy Hushon. We have free workshops within our coaching team the first Friday of every month. We have a Facebook group that's really full of people who are just there to support each other. We have a weekly newsletter. So if you're interested in learning more about what we offer there, you can go to uplevelwellness.org and find our resources. And then, like I said, we have a group of coaches that are able to support people with different one-on-one or group coaching options, depending on what somebody's goals are.
All right. And that's in nutrition and
training, strength training, mindset, coaching around a lot of different areas, whether it's health or nutrition or emotional health or relational health, transitioning through life goals. Sometimes you just need somebody that's there to help walk alongside you. And we have people who are able to do that.
You have programs for people. How do you structure those to fit an individual's needs?
Well, the first thing that we want to do is find out where somebody is and what exactly they need, help them understand who they want to become. And then we help them find a way to develop a plan to get from point A to point B. So we do have plans for, weight loss or nutrition coaching or strength training, because those are foundational things to our overall health and well-being. And what we say, 90% of Americans have some sort of metabolic dysfunction because they're not fueling their body correctly. 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. And so a lot of times that's where we start, is with our physical health. But then along the way, we also help people with some mindset coaching tools to be able to work on the emotional and mental health parts of it as well. So people who work with the coach are 10 times more likely to reach their goals. Our goal is to meet you where you are and then help you find the place you want to be and walk alongside you as you get there.
And your programs, are they online? Are they in person?
Well, we are all virtual, so we have coaches across the country, and we can work with people anywhere. We definitely do some in-person things when we're in our area, but the nice thing is we can work with people wherever they are.
And men and women both?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground, and this has been a neat podcast recording.
I appreciate you just having this conversation with me. I mean, growing up in agriculture, it's from a farm family. I know what the lifestyle is, and I've connected with a lot of people and spent my whole life in agriculture, and I have a real passion for people who work so hard to take care of everybody else and feed this world. I just want to encourage people to realize that they need to take as good a care of themselves as they're taking of their cows.
Yeah.
It's not a luxury, it's really a necessity. Your family wants you to be around there for them, and it is possible to create change in your life, and it's possible to do it with some small steps along the way. It doesn't have to be a complete overhaul, and you can make a lot of differences just by paying a little better attention to your own health. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and want to encourage all your listeners to do one thing today to take a little bit better care of themselves and prioritize some time for themselves.
So, Wendy, you mentioned your Facebook page. Give us the name of that.
You can just follow me at Wendy Hushon. Last name is spelled Hushon, or you can find Uplevel Wellness on Facebook or uplevelwellness.org.
Okay. And Instagram, do you have an account for that?
Yep, we have Instagram also.
Okay. And is that just Uplevel Wellness?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And do you have a website that people can look at?
I do. Yep, that is uplevelwellness.org.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And I know that somebody's life is going to change because of this. It's something that we need to think about. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you have questions, be sure to reach out to Wendy. She's a great resource and has a lot of other people standing with her to help you with changes that you can make in your life to make yourself even stronger and better. So I'm Connie Kuber with Sealpro Silage Barrier Film by Connor Agriscience, and you've been listening to the DairyVoice podcast by Dairy Business News. Please subscribe, like, and share this podcast, especially at this time of the year, and take Wendy's recommendations and run with them. You can only get better from here. And as always, stay safe out there. Whether you're on your dairy or driving around, whatever it is, stay safe. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again very soon.